cuando intento ejecutarlo me da como problemas.
Bueno, yo ya puse el live, todavía no he empezado, pero les aviso apenas empiece. Y listo, ya va a empezar. Bueno, te voy a hacer host, Pedro, y me voy a acercar.
Perfecto. Ok, bueno, voy a iniciar entonces con el webinar.
Sí.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for your attendance. My name is Pedro Gamboa. I'm account executive here at ProMine, and today we're going to be working with PROGEOX. This is a free course over PROGEOX, so you're going to be learning the basics and the fundamentals of how to use the PROGEOX app on your tablet or on your mobile phone. I'm going to share my screen to see a quick presentation that I have prepared in advance. And then right after that, we're going to start with the PROGEOX app directly on my screen. I do have to warn you that I'm going to be using an emulator, so it's going to maybe look a little bit different, like the real environment that you're going to see on your tablet or on your mobile device, but it's very, very similar. The reason why I'm using an emulator is because I can share that way in the screen with everybody that is attending to this free course. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so once again, welcome to this free course, this webinar on PROGEOX app. PROGEOX app is an application designed under Android environment to be used on your tablets and your mobile phone. And the idea is that it would be of great assistance in underground geological mapping, since you will be able to go in your underground sites, in your underground mines, directly with your tablet, with the maps preloaded on that tablet, and you will be able to start drawing directly over the tablet information that you can pick right out of the space where you are. Let's talk a little bit about ProMine first. So ProMine is a Canadian company. It has more than 30 years providing to mining developments tools that are used to make the day-to-day mining activities easier, since they're very simple to use tools inside of the program. Our base headquarters are in Quebec, Canada. Here's our webpage, promine.com. We have over 100 customers worldwide, names like Agnico Eagle, Endeavour Mining, Capstone, Mine Raglan, among others. Okay, what are the key features of this PROGEOX app that we want to introduce to you today? First, it's designed for mobile and tablets under Android OS. So you have to have a capable Android OS equipment in order to be able to install this app. It's a standalone app. It doesn't need anything else. So you would just download the app or receive it directly from us by email. You would install it in your device and you can start immediately using the application. You would only have to do like a quick pre-register inside of the app, but it's very straightforward, and we will see that in a couple of seconds. Okay, it is made to use DXS files, since this is a very well-known type of file in all the mining software. So it will basically be compatible with any other software that you are probably using in your mine right now, since the files that are generated are also in DXF. It will allow for 3D rotation and visualization of your maps, insertion of measurement scales, just like the ones that you use right now or probably are using right now over paper. You will be able to use them directly on digital on your tablet. It's a very simplified interface, so you would only have to use the buttons that you were going to see on screen and just tap them with your finger or using a stylus pen. We have also included a function in order to be able to assess, evaluate existing wedges. If it's the case, you would just have to draw the structures that you're seeing on field, and the program automatically will create a wedge if there is one, and so that you will be able to take decisions in advance, only seeing the information in real time inside of the mine. It's also very important to comment right now that this app does not need any type of communications. You won't need internet or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Once you have loaded or preloaded your maps in the app, you won't have to connect to any type of external network. It's a standalone program, and it's managed directly from inside of the tablet. And well, you will also be able to create face and back mappings and edit geological structures directly over the screen. Okay, I'm going to leave just a second here our media on the web so that you can take notes. This is going to be recorded anyway over YouTube, so you can come back at any time and review this information again. I'm only going to leave it there for a couple of seconds so that if anyone wants to take note, you can do it at this time. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to stop sharing this screen. This is a presentation, so we can go. Oh, no, before I stop sharing that screen, I have already made here a presentation with the process that you will need to log into the account. Once you installed the app on your tablet, you're going to be presented with a screen very similar to this one, if not identical, in which you will only have to click or tap down where it says create account. You just tap there with your finger. You will go to a basic register form in which you only have to put your email, password, verify the password, name, last name, country where you're from, the company. It's just very basic information, your profession, phone number, and your actual position. After checking the agreements of the terms, you just click the register button, and that will take you immediately to this second window. This is the window that you are going to see in your tablet or in your mobile device. We're going to have three buttons at left: home, my account, and files, my files. So I'm going to show you what you can see in my account. This is the same image that you're going to have, only that it's going to have your name in the lower part. Right now, this image doesn't have a license pre-charged. So one of the account's executives is going to contact you and is going to provide you with the license. So you're just going to click over or tap over the plus sign and just type in the information that you can copy and paste the information that the account executive is going to send you by your mail or by any way that they have to contact you. Once you have typed all the characters from the passport, from the license, just tap anywhere outside, and if that license is okay, then you will see a green dot and the expiration date of that license. Okay, we're gonna go now to in the left to my files, so you can see some minor configurations that we have to do there in order to start working with PROGEOX. Once you enter in my files, you're going to have a new blank space, so you're not going to have any file preloaded. You have to click here under new files, tap with your finger. Once you do that, PROGEOX will prompt that it needs permission to access your device storage. So you tap over allow, and then you will be able to browse in your storage and look for any DXF file that you have pre-stored in your device. The idea would be that you would preload on your tablet, on your mobile device, the files that you are going to use that day or that week or in your day-to-day mining operations, so that you would have everything preloaded there in the form of the XF files, just to have them ready. So when you go down in the mine, you already have your information there. You wouldn't have to print this information in paper, since it would already be in your storage device and available for PROGEOX to be able to manipulate and edit over those DXF files. Okay. So I'm going to share now my emulator. I have PROGEOX already started in my emulator, so I'm going to share it with you, the information, just like you would see it in your actual tablet. I won't be using my fingers to touch the screen. I will be using my mouse. In your case, when you have your trial licenses and install them in your device, you can use directly your finger or any stylus if you have one available. Okay, so this is the same window that you saw, that you just saw in my presentation. This is the actual PROGEOX already running. So I can go here from one window to another in this area. Over here, my files, I have already chosen my device and chosen my files. So now it's available to me in my home window. I can see it here in latest files. Once you start loading other files, that list is going to grow and you're going to be able to pick files or DXS files directly from this latest files area. So I'm going to click over this file, this example file that I have here. This file is going to be later shared with you so that you can practice over this file, or you can practice over your own DFX files. But if you want to follow this tutorial like step by step, without any problems, you can later download this file and practice directly over this file. Okay, now we are already inside of the PROGEOX interface. This image that you see here is that DXS file that I just opened. And let's take a look the general interface. It's, as I said previously, it's a very simple interface. The idea is that you can use this just using your fingers underground, under harsh environments, moving around from place to place. So the idea is that we made every button here in a way that it can be used without any problem, just by using your fingers. Also, to move the screen around and do zooms, you can do that also with your fingers, just moving from a place to a place, or just pinching down or up to go nearer or far away from your image. Okay, let's take a look first at the left side of the screen, where you have these buttons. We have here our layers. So the way that the app is structured is that you have different layers where you can put your information. That information can be modified. You can create that in a drawing in other software, export it as a DXF, and load it into PROGEOX. And here you can change names of layers. You can edit information of layers. You can, for example, doing a tap over this little little flashlight, you can view and hide different layers, since not at all time you're going to need all the information. For example, in this case, I have in green a layer with the drift. Normally drifts are not used when doing underground mapping, so you have the chance to just turn that layer off and that won't be in the way. You can also, for example, just select any other layer, and you're going to see that that layer is active at any time. So that will be the layer in which you are putting new entities or new drawings directly. You can also, for example, change a color of a layer so that the drawings that you make there are going to be made in that new color by default. For example, if I choose here under the layer stations and I do a tap over the little box with the orange color, it's going to take me to the selection area where I can select any other color and click OK. Okay, I'm going to close the layers options. We can also access the layer information in the buttons that we have down here. Some of those buttons are going to expand that area. For example, this one, layers, it's going to expand the area and show other buttons that are hidden beneath layer. For example, it's the same if I choose view. Some other commands don't expand that window. For example, line. If I choose line, I'm going to see a prompt in the upper part of my tablet up here. If I choose, for example, text, it's also going to give me a prompt over here, but it's not going to expand the area in the bottom. But if one again, for example, I choose geological mapping, I'm going to see how that information expands, and I have access to other buttons that are hidden under geological mapping. In the case, for example, of geological mappings, I have enough buttons that I can even scroll from left to right to see more buttons that are not visible in this first vision. But for example, in tools, I don't have the option to scroll because there's only such amount of buttons that it's not needed for me to do a scrolling like I do when I'm in the area of geological mappings. Okay, so let's go back to this tab in the left, and that's going to see quickly over the properties buttons. Over here, we have options. We have properties of any entity that we choose in our working area. For example, if I choose this line over here, excuse me. For example, if I choose this line, I am going to see properties that are related to that entity. I can see in which layer that line is, in the color of the line, elevation of that line, vertex X and vertex Y, for example, among other information. If I change and, for example, tap over this object down here, I'm going to see in properties that it's in another layer, it has another color, and it has another coordinate system. X, Y, and Z are different from these ones in this line over here. Okay, so I'm going to close this window. And now let's start working directly with the buttons that we have for our PROGEOX app. Okay, we're going to start taking a look at these 4 buttons that are over here. The first one, once you tap over it, you can see that there's a dim blue light under the button that indicates that the button is active right now. That allows us for tapping on the screen and keeping the finger pressed over the screen. You can just move from side to side. So you can move your image and see other areas of your images. You can also zoom in and out using your fingers to pinch. I'm going to use the keyboard because I don't have a tactile screen, but in your case, on your mobile device, you can just use your fingers and do this movement to zoom in and zoom out. So we can do this, and we can move around and zoom in the information in and out to see in better detail, or take a general look of the drawing. This second button down here to the left, I'm going to activate it by tapping on it. You can see that the dim blue light changes from one button to another. This allows us to do 3D rotations, 3D views. So now I can rotate my image. That's in 3D. I can also zoom in and zoom out in this view. Okay, so now you can see now that this is completely in a 3D view. In this case, we're looking at a model of a drift. Okay, This third button is going to take us to plan view. That's the view in which normally geologists tend to work inside of the mine. So I'm going to click there, and there we have an expanded plain view of all our drawing. And this last button over here is used to delete entities. We're going to test this in a couple of seconds. Let's move over to some new buttons, and then I'm going to come back and test this delete button again. Okay. The first button that we have down here in the lower area is the layer buttons. If we click here, we're going to see the same function that we have here on the layer on the left. So it's the same information. But from here, we can add new layers. We can remove layers. We can turn all the layers off, turn all of the layers off, or activate all the layers just by clicking in any one of these buttons over here. Here we have this section view. This is cross section. Right now, we don't have any sections here. So once we create sections, we're going to be able to come back to this area and take a look at the sections that we could have here. We're going to also see that in a couple of minutes. Here we have some predefined views. This is the normal plain view that we have outside. And we also have some popular and most used views so that you can click directly over those buttons or tap directly over them, and PROGEOX will take you to that view. We have the capability of inserting points. I'm going to do a tap over new points. Here we have PROGEOX is going to present us a second screen with some options. For example, we can select directly on screen. I'm going to select this first option over here. In this case, I can see my prompt. The prompt says select a point on screen. So I can just tap with my finger at any given place, and the point will be displayed there. Another option that we have is using coordinates, XYZ coordinates for a point. So for example, let's say that I have the points in advance taken with my survey equipment. I still don't have them drawn in my file, but I do have the point. I can use this command to pinpoint that point in that exact position where the survey team is telling me that that point should be. So I have a point in advance. I'm going to just type down the information, vertex X, vertex Y, and vertex Z. I'm going to leave it there for a couple of seconds so that when you come back to the video, you can copy easily those points. Okay, now I'm going to click over OK once my points have been already digitized inside of the tabs. Okay, and I can see how this little yellow point just popped up over here. That point has the same XYZ information that I just typed in the previous window. Okay. We also have the option to create a point upon another point. So let's say I know I have a station in any part of my mine, and from that station, a azimuth and a distance is taken. I can type that information here using another point and also represent a point over my actual site. So I'm going to click right here on another point. You have to type first the informations, and then we're going to select over which point that point is going to be drawn upon. So it's going to be a 279 azimuth. This angle, it's the inclination of that point from your horizontal level. If it's negative, it's going to go down. If it's positive, it's going to go up. In this case, we have a negative 0.3 points. And we have a distance of 13 feet from our station. That's the data for the new point that we're going to insert. Once I click OK, PROGEOX is going to ask me to select a point or a structure from where I am going to measure that information. In this case, it's going to be this station over here, the 204 LP. So I'm going to click over there. And once I clicked or tapped there, automatically that point is positioned there at 279 degrees of azimuth with an inclination of minus 0.03 and 13 feet from the station. These points are completely in a 3D space. So if I make a 3D rotation, I can see that they are in space. They're not at elevation 0. They're at the real elevations that I just typed in when I put the information in the dialog box. Okay, so this is a practical way that we can start already drawing on our maps. In this example, you can see that the drift, it's only drawn until this point. And with these 2 new points, it would be like an hypothetical case that right now our actual mine has already been developed until this point, and we would start adding information just using the tools that PROGEOX can give us to start putting information inside, new information inside of the map. Okay, I'm going to go quickly to my layers, and I'm going to turn off the 3D drift since we're not going to be using the 3D drift at this moment. Okay, so now we see the same information here, but only with the 3D dish turned off. Okay. The next thing we can do is that we can add lines and polylines to our drawings. In the case of lines, there are lines only formed by 2 points. In the case of polylines, they're formed by 2 or more points. So if I pick line, I'm going to get a prompt asking select the first point. And I can do a tap anywhere and a second tap, and my line is already created. It is going to copy the information of the layer which I am actively, that is active right now. In this case, the layer L1200 fold is active, in which the color of the line is blue. That's why this line was tainted blue. If I, for example, would choose another layer, by tapping on it, and I draw another line, I'm going to see that that line is now red because that active layer is configured as default with red color for any entity drawn. Okay, let's take a second to go back to the delete button that we have right here, this little trash can, this bin of trash can. So we just select the entity that we want to delete, let's say this blue line. Here we get the prompt selection line, and I can do a tap over this trash can, and that line would be deleted. The same thing with this red line. I can just select it and click here over the trash can, and now that line is also deleted. Okay, let's keep going forward. Now we have the polyline button. The polyline button is very similar to line. The main difference is that we can choose more than 3 points to make our line. So I can do a tap here, and another tap here. I can keep doing taps until I am finished. And once I'm finished, I can cancel by tapping over the X, or I can accept that line by tapping over this black check mark over here. So I'm going to accept that, and there my line is drawn. The polyline command also allows the user to create close entities. For example, if I draw these 4 points and I tap over this green arrow that is here, this green circumference, the polyline would be automatically closed. Okay, I am going to delete this information, and we're going to go to the next button. We can also add text at any given place over images. So if you want to make any annotation or get any information directly over your map, You don't need to copy that in a paper outside of the tablet. You can just use the text button, do a click over text, select a point on screen where you want to insert your text. Let's say I want it here. I put the text directly in, for example, tests 01, and I give a height. That's the height of the letters in the text. So here you would have to make a couple of tests in advance, or if you know, or if you have an idea of the size of your image, you can also guess. But let's try, let's say a number 2 feet of height of the text and see how it draws. Okay, so here it's our text with a 2 feet height. Let's do one with 1 feet so that you can see the difference. Test 02, and I'm going to give it a 1 feet height. Okay, here you can see the difference between a text with 2 feet and a text with 1 feet according to this image, to this drawing. If your drawing had more information, probably you would have to make those texts bigger, or if it has had less information, maybe you can make the text smaller. In this case, a 1 or 2 feet text works with this amount of space that we have in the drawing. We can also delete that text without any problem and just be deleted. We can also see the properties of the text, so I can select text and go to properties. Here I can change the color, for example, just clicking over another color. I can change it from one layer to another if that was needed. And I can even give it an elevation. Right now you can see that it's an elevation 0. So if I move in 3D, that text it's going to be moved away from my drawing. So I'm going to select the text again. And let's say that I want that text to be at 1200. That's where my actual drift is right now. I'm going to click here over the check mark. And once I close the window, now that text is going to be at the same elevation of my drift. Now it's a little bit higher. Let me see. Let me correct that. So, 1200. Okay. Here we go. Now that text is directly over the same elevation as my drift. Okay. I'm gonna delete that text because we don't need it there. So I'm gonna select it and press over delete. Okay, perfect. And we're gonna keep working over our other commands. Before going to the geological mapping buttons, let's see fast. Let's take a quick look at the tools that we have available for other type of geological information, not directly related to mapping. So I'm going to click over or tap over tools. And here we have an amount of buttons that we can use also. For example, let's say that we want to draw polylines. It's very similar to this button, but the main difference is that you can select the color in advance. For example, I want it to be red. I can select red directly there and just draw the drawing of my line. And there I have a red line. Or maybe if I want another color, I will just draw, and let's select blue. And in this case, I can make a blue polyline without having to change the properties of the line, since I can in advance select the color that I want for that line. And I'm going to delete those lines also. Okay, and we can continue now. We also have a couple of tools that are very well known in the mining, in the geological mapping industry and the underground geological mapping. Those are the grids and the rulers. In many mines now, actually, geologists use a strip, a ruler, or a grid on paper to pick up information from the field. So we have developed this tool so that you can emulate the same task that you do on field. You can emulate it directly here in our PROGEOX app. For example, if I want to use a ruler, let's say I'm in this side of my drift and I want to pick up information over here, I can just come with my ruler. I can select the first point, the end point, and there I can see directly a ruler over my drift. So I can now start picking up geological features inside of my drift, or maybe if my drift has already been developed all the way until here and the model still isn't updated, I can even update it using now this ruler and just copy any information I wish directly over the map. Or if I have, let's say, a fault that I'm looking in the back of my drift, I can come here and let's say I'm gonna draw a fault in blue, and I can just draw here that information. And there I have it. Let's take that fault to its actual elevation. Let's say I want that at 204. Okay. And now, since I won't be using this ruler anymore, the strip, I can just come and select delete measurement tools, and I do a click over my ruler, and then in that way I get rid of the ruler and I only have the part of the drift that I draw and the fault that I just picked up from the actual back of my drift. Okay, we also have available a grid. In order to make a grid, we only need a line. So let's say that I want a grid over this area over here. I would just have to make a line there and select grid. It will ask me for the spacing to the left of the line and to the right of the line. I am going to, on purpose, type here 2 and here 4. Normally, the spacing is equal, so you just type 2 and 2 or 4 and 4 feet. But let's say 2 and 4 from now, so that you can see the difference on the actual drawing. The spacing is the spacing of each block inside of my grid. In this case, I want squared 1 foot boxes, so I'm going to leave 1. And let's say that I want it in the back of my drift. That would be at 1204, or I can select the elevation directly by just clicking over the actual drift. Select a vertex for elevation. I will click on our actual drift and go back, and there we have our 1200 elevation. I'm going to click over OK. Now the command is asking me to select the line that I want to use for the grid. I'm going to select this line that I just drew. And there we have it. In this case, we can see that from the line, there is only 2 feet to the left and 4 feet to the right, because that was the specification that I put on the dialog box. But if I would have put 2 and 2, it will only go all the way until here. Okay, with that grid, we can also start drawing information. Let's say I want to draw a couple of lines that I'm looking in my back, so I can come and just start drawing that information. Okay, and just like that, I'm using a grid and a ruler just like I would do in paper, but with the advantage that this information is already digitized and it's exportable in a DXF file. So any other member of my team would have the information updated once I come out of the mine. There's no need for another crew to digitize this information from paper to our software. It's just going to be directly already available in a DXF file to share with any other member of the crew. Okay, I'm going to delete that grid so it's not in the way. Okay, and this line isn't needed, so I'm going to delete it also. And I'm just going to make sure that these two lines that are drawn are in the elevation that I need them. In this case, it will be 1204. And let's put this one in 1200 just to see the difference. Okay. So now if I do a 3D view, I can see that one line is at 1204 and the other one is at 1200, just like I put in my properties windows. Okay, perfect. So let's keep looking at the other tools. We also we can make hatches like this one we have over here. So for example, I can go and create a polyline. Let's say I'm looking at a vein that's right here. So I can copy that information. I can take that to the elevation that I need. It's at 1200. I can put it at 1204. And if I want to apply a hatch to that entity I just draw, I come over here to the fill command and select hatches. So let's say I wanted blue. It's asking me to select the polylines that I wanted to be with that color. So I'm going to do a click over this red polyline. And I'm going to click the check mark. It's giving me a report of the actual elevation of that line. And now I only have to click inside of the part that I want colored. So I'm going to do a tap inside of that red line. And there I have my hatch created at the 1200 elevation. Okay. So moving along, we have some options that we can personalize. There's basically two types of options that we can make default changes. One is here under tools. We have options here, and the other one is here under geological mappings. Here, options. So let's look at this one first. In this one, we can create like lithologies that we can use later in advance. For example, we're going to check any one of this. I'm going to click over vein, and here we see that we can put the name of that lithology, the color, and if we were to select any type of different hatch or pattern, we would have to also give a scale and density to that hatch. In the case of solids, we can leave one and one since it's not necessary to give any type of scales. We can check another one just to check one out. And we can add our new ones. Let's say I can add waste. I can give it any color that I want, let's say white. Density and scale 1. I'm going to leave it as a solid color, and I click OK. And at the end of my list, we should have that one that we just created. We can delete them also, so it's completely, it can be personalized in terms of what you need in your mind. So we can just delete or add information according to the information that you actually use in your mind. Over here, we have information from the different types of grades that we have in our minds also. For example, here we have gold. We have the name that will be shown and the annotation that will be used for any type of calculations made in advance. Okay, I'm going to cancel here. And let's go now directly to our geological mapping features. Okay. So our first button here is the create face button. Let's say that I want to do a face mapping in this area. I'm going to bring my drift just for some seconds so that we have the information in real context. So let's say I want to map this new face mapping here. Since I only have information updated until my green model, and I want to update the information of this section that I just have new, and I picked up with these points that my survey or my geological team already gave them. I can use the create face option to create a new face here. So I'm going to go to plan view. I'm going to select on create face, pick section start point. I want it from here to here. It's asking me to confirm the direction in which I'm seeing that section. In this case, this is correct. If it was looking the other way around, if I was seeing from west to east, I would tap over no, and it would do a face map in the other direction. In this case, since I'm looking from east to west, this is correct. So I click over, I tap over OK. I can give it a name. Let's say section 1. This width and this height, it's taken from my drift, but I can do any modification that I need here. For example, I can put 4 here and 3.6. I can also give it the elevation or select an elevation here directly on my map. This is the spacing for the grid that is going to be shown in my actual face mapping. And since I'm inside of the mine, I can use my tablet or my mobile device to take a photo. Since I'm not actually in a mine, I already have in advance photos in my storage system. So I will just come and select one from my storage. Ideally, you can just take a picture of that face, but I'm going to select the photo. I can do any adjustment here if it was necessary to adjust to my actual grid. And once that's okay, I'm going to check on this, tap over this check mark, and click and tap over OK. Okay, now I have that actual image in my face mapping. I'm going to, this is in section view, so I'm going to go out of section view and see in plan view, do a 3D rotation just so you can have a chance to look at the actual face mapping in 3D. So I'm going to go to plan view, and I'm going to rotate a little just so you can see there. Okay, there by mistake I tapped over the 1300, so over the 1203 elevation. That's why that drift is so high. So let me create a new one. I'm just going to go back using the back button, and I'm going to create a new face from here to here in this direction. Elevation is going to be 1200. I'm going to select my photo. I'm going to tap over OK. Okay, section name. And OK. Now if we go again to plan view and do a 3D rotation, now I can see that face mapping is in the place where it should be. Okay. There you can see that this would be like the actual view that the geologists and the miners would be seeing inside of the actual drift. They would see the extension of that face mapping over at the end of the drift in the new section that still hasn't been modeled yet, since that would be the next step once we have that face map over there. Okay, I'm going to go back to section view. So I'm going to tap over the section button. Now I can see that I have a new section created. I didn't have this when I started the program, but now since I made a new face mapping, now I can see this information here. So I'm going to tap over section, and I can start drawing directly over this section. So let's say using polyline, I can see here that maybe I have a different lithology from left to right. So I could just come and, let's say, draw like a line there. And once that is done, I can now add the ontologies directly to that face mapping. So I'm going to tap over insert rock. I'm going to select the grid contour. It will be over here. Boundaries, I want the boundaries to be the objects that are on screen. So, and I want them to be in this section, in the layer section 2. I can take them to another section, another layer, but this one is okay. So I'm going to tap over OK. And now I just have to assign colors. So let's say that I want vein to be this area over here at the right. So I'm just going to tap over this area. It says here, insert block, pick a point inside the area to hatch. So I'm going to pick this point here. And I'm going to go OK on the check mark. I can now say, let's say that has 400 grams of silver. And let's say that we have here 7 grams of gold. I can choose now my waist or whatever I have in my mind. And let's say pick a point inside the area to hatch. So let's say that at the left of my line, I have the waist. So I'm going to tap here. I'm going to give it OK. And OK, let's say the same, that I have a grade of silver of, I don't know, 5 and a grade of gold of 0. Tap over OK, cancel here. And here we have now our face map complete and ready to be shared in a DXF file with any other member of the crew. I'm going to go back to the plan view to do a 3D rotation. I'm going to turn off the drift so that it isn't in the way. And there I have my actual face mapping at the end of the drift in a new section that has just been, let's say, produced or done. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to plan view and go on to the next buttons. We can also make backgrids. This option of backgrid, it's very similar to the grid that we have under tools. It has the advantage that we can directly start from scratch. In the case of the tool of grid, we have to do a line first. Right now, we can just start by drawing our contour. For example, let me turn off the drift again. Okay, so let's say I want to make a backgrid in this area. I would just come, select backgrid, and I will draw the contour. Excuse me, I'm in section, on this section layer. So I have to be in another layer because I can, if I draw over section, I just can't see the information. So I'm going to go, let's say, to my back over here. Okay, perfect. Now I'm in the back layer and I can start over again. Geological mapping, backgrid, and just start. Oh, sorry. Let me create my contour first. Okay. I want a backgrid in that area. So I go now to my geological mapping, backgrid, select the contour polyline, and I give it the information here. So let's say I want the spacing of my blocks from 1 to 0.5. I'm going to make them 1 by 1. I want them in the back of my grid. So it's going to be at 1204. I can obviously select directly by doing a click over the map, but you know that I'm in 1204, so I'm going to type that inside. I can pick even an angle in which the lines are going to be drawn. So in this case, this is a very horizontal and vertical view. But if it wasn't the case, I could just pick the angle. I'm going to pick this angle over here, this line, the yellow line to the left, so that my grid is drawn over that angle. It's not the case, but I'm just going to do it to make an example. And then at 104 of elevation, and again one by one. I'm gonna tap over OK, and then I have my grid according to that line that I just selected. With that grid over there, I can now come and do more mapping of my bags, just using that grid as the grid information from my drawing, just if I would be making a face map. So I could select polyline and just start drawing the information that I can see directly over the field. Okay, so let's keep moving with the others. Okay, we can insert a report of that face map that we just did. So we're going to go again to section view over here. And let's say that I want to insert a report. I can click over the button report in section view. Let's give it a name. Let's say test report. Round number 1, it automatically fills the date, May 4th, 2023. Who is making that information, and we can select the grades that we have. In this case, we only have grades for silver and gold. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to say that this is my mineral, the red part, and that the white part is my waste. So I'm going to click there. That being done, I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to select a point where I want my report to be. I'm going to tap over here, and there it is. I have a report with my waste, my mineral, and the average of the information that I just put inside for that face mapping in particular. Okay. Here, if we do a 3D view, you can see that that report is just right there in this section view of our face mapping. Okay, perfect. Let's continue. We can also insert structures, real structures, let's say faults, joints, and similar. So I'm gonna select the new structure command. And let's say I want a new structure over here. I would just have to create the entity, click OK. It's asking me to select the polyline. It would be this one. And the direction in which the dip is facing. So I'm going to say that the dip is facing south. So I'm going to click to the south of that line. I can add an angle. Let's say that's, I measured an 85 degrees dip. And let's keep it at that elevation. Confirm and end. And now we have inserted a actual fault with the azimuth according to north and the dip of the fault and the direction of that dip. With that information, I can also generate surfaces. So I'm going to select the generate surface button, select structures. In this case, I'm going to select this structure over here. I'm going to click over the check mark to accept that. And let's say I want to extrude top, extrude down, and I want it to go up and down up to 7 feet. I'm going to click on OK. And now if I do a 3D view, I can see a 3D view of that actual structure following that 85-degree dip, going up 8 feet and down 8 feet. You can see how it cuts my actual drift. So if we would have other drifts over or under this one, we could also do a projection and see if this structure would cut a section in those drifts up or down. So that's a very interesting feature. Okay, we can also create wedges. So here we have two structures. We have one fault here, one fault here. Let's create a third fault to generate an actual wedge. So let's say that we can create a fault here. Select polyline, direction. I'm gonna make it dip north. say 79 degrees. Okay, now I have my free structures there. Here you can see the structures. Let's say that I want to see if those structures create a wedge. I'm gonna click over the create wedge button. I can pick up to 6 structures at a time. I only have 3 right now, so I'm gonna pick those 3. This one, this one, and this one. I'm gonna tap over the check mark to accept. And let's say, I'm not sure if with 5 a wedge is gonna be made. So I'm gonna go all the way up to 8 feet. I'm gonna extrude all the way up to 8 feet. And here we go. There we should have a wedge created right here in the center. I'm going to delete the structure so that you can see clearly the wedge that we created. Okay, and now if we do a 3D view, I will turn off the drift. And there you can see very clear that we do have a wedge. So our technical crew can come and assess if that wedge would generate any danger for the miners and the geologists, or they can take any decision regarding if they have to do any reinforcement of that wedge. But that PROGEOX can automatically at least tell us that the wedge is there, so that they would have to take into account if they can continue or if they have to make more assessments of this wedge right here. Okay, and to finish for the day, we can also extract some information from that wedge. So we can come here, wedge data. Since we have a wedge, we can select that wedge. And here we have the tonnage and the height and the date that that wedge was introduced in the PROGEOX app. Okay, this was a brief overview of all the functions that PROGEOX has available. Our account executives will be in touch with you to send you the app and the actual license key so that you can then follow this tutorial. So please be in touch. We'll be in touch with you, and if you have any question, please don't hesitate in contacting us through any of our information sites. Thank you very much. Take care.